And welcome back to Live Art TV. My name is Thomas Bosket. We're here to look at the work of a new artist today, Ousmane Ndiaye Dago. Dago's work is right behind me here and all around the room. We'll start out maybe talking a little bit about who he is, what he's done. So this will be kind of fun to look at. He's an artist from Senegal, Ndiaye. He was born in 1951. He has worked in the graphic arts, as you can see in this image. You can see in the background here, and the way he's posed the model. And if you zoom in a little bit, you get a glance at this. I don't know if you have the chance, but there you go. You'll see that he was a graphic artist at the Senegal National Institute of Fine Arts and the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp, Belgium. He's also worked as an art director for Lifa magazine and has designed numerous covers for the United Nations educational, science, and cultural publications. He's also designed album covers for West African musicians such as Youssou N'Dour and Thione Seck. This is a little bit about his background. You can see a bit of the work here as we pan around some of the range of what he's done. There's an interesting range of what you're going to see today related to the human body. Mostly he shot female bodies. He's got a couple male bodies, and I think the point is more about how we embody being a god, a goddess, a king, a queen, the power of ourselves. And you'll see this over and over and over, kind of the balance that he strikes between being, I think, human and being otherworldly, kind of mythical. You'll get it as we wander around here. I think there's some things that are very personal and internal, and some things that are very external and more, I would say, cultural, systemic. Like the notion of a queen is a very high construct, but it's also something we understand inside. To be a queen is to be powerful and to have something in us that is strong, or to be a king, that you believe in yourself. And how you connect the two, I think the internal to the external systems that you're interacting with, creates images like this, kind of meditations on being inside yourself or outside. This is a great one, actually, if you can come over here, Rich, to look at this. This piece is obviously a young woman. She's telling us to me, she's saying, no, no, no. Like if you come over here, she's got her hands on her hip, and she's going, I've had enough. Her face is covered because we're dealing with an artist from Senegal. And in Senegal, 90% of the population is Muslim, and so you have people who the body is very private, that to expose your face is very taboo, that it's maybe more about celebrating the figure than it is about celebrating the identity of the person. It's leaving the identity out and more of the structure of the body, the beauty of the body, the elegance of a body as the point of the image. And in this case, I'd say it's also the point is of this young person saying, I've had enough of somebody maybe overpowering me or dominating me, and I'm taking control of it. So this is her saying, stand back, take a break. If we come around, let's start with this image. Let's stay here for a second. Let me just jump up and get to where we are. I will chat with you about what I think is happening. This is a piece called Beads, for no reason other than that there's beads here. It's a decorative element. I think, what's going on? She's decorating herself, but what about us looking at this image? What are we looking at? We're seeing a girl who's dancing. She's got a party going on in her own life, and she's facing this wall full of fire. The artist himself paints these backdrops. He actually performs a lot of these photographs, so they're painted while the model is actually slathering their body up in mud. You might say, why? It's kind of crazy. I think that part of it is connecting to the earthly, kind of the primordial mud that we come from. But it's also taking this higher road of creating an art piece that is a celebration of like the dance of life, the party that you're in. What's interesting to me in this piece is that she's facing away from us. In one respect to art history, people would say that we have all the power to gaze at her, but I'd also argue that she has quite a bit of power in what she's doing and how she feels about herself. She's no question that she's having a good time, and that's why I think of this, although it's called Beads, I think of it as a bit of a dance for herself. She may say, I'm dancing, I don't care. If you want to look, go ahead. But I don't feel like she's in any way implicated, or do I feel that she's actually turning away from us? I feel like she's just dancing, and that's her game. And she's not worried about you. You're on a dance floor, and I'm not thinking about my viewer. Although the viewer's there, they can enjoy themselves. Good for you. I'm having a good day myself. And I think the reason this is probably happening to me is because the background isn't neutral in this case. It's so active that I feel like there's something going on in her life that's on the other side of this image. This artist also, I said earlier that he's from Senegal, and I should probably pause before we go back to him in a minute, but I want to say this is Live Art TV again. Remember where you are. You can go to livearttv.com online. You can call us at 855-983-5483 and talk to me, Thomas Bosket in this case, and say hi. We also have people on call if you need to talk to somebody else. Don't worry about it. Just give a ring and say, hey, I need to chat about something. I have a question about the work. This particular work was beads. We haven't discussed much about the size, but it's the dimensions and the formalities. It's 36 by 48. The piece is $5,200. It is a photographic print. It's matte, so there's almost no gloss on it. It's kind of it feels like a bit of an artifact when you see it. It's like the print itself is sort of the same as the clay on her skin. It's very, very tactile. You can feel the whole thing when you see it live. You'll see when you. Well, actually, Rich, as you end close here, you can actually see all the details, and it's interesting what's happening on the surface of the clay. When the model slathers themselves up, they miss spots or spots dry out, and it gets kind of hard. It reminds me more, weirdly enough, this reminds me of a kind of flat painting. Like it reminds me more of the information you see back here feels like these pieces. Whereas the mud itself that's dancing around on the body, when it's liquid, it feels more like, less like a painting and more like a thing itself. You know, when it becomes more physical, like here or up into the hip, you see all this sparkly, shiny stuff coming up here. That's all moving a lot more and much more physical. The hair draping down the back, coming over here is kind of you could think of it as a protection, but it's not. In this case, I think it's just, she's got it pulled over her shoulder in the front and then pushed over the back. I think it's just for the sake of being able to move a little bit more and get your groove on. It feels like she's definitely thrashing about here and getting it going. So this piece, I think, is a good start to the show because I feel like we're going to go up against a lot of images that are about the individuals in the painting, which are young women generally. Like I said, he's done men as well, but the women are celebrating themselves. They're also celebrating what it is to be going through the stages of forming who you are. Basically, are you in power? Are you in control? Are you discovering your control? Do you feel secure in yourself? Do you have moments where you're introspective or you're just alone, hanging out with your girlfriend and you're partying a little bit, having a good time? And I think these images represent a lot of that celebration and that range. The artist himself said that a lot of his artistic philosophy came from a period in his life when he was in art school, and he was asked to develop not a game, I'm trying to think what to call it, to exhibit the work of Hugo Klaus. The work of Hugo Klaus was a poet and a novelist, a Belgian poet and novelist, and he was asked to interpret into physical, three-dimensional space the poem and then stack up these pieces of paper that he made, and they started falling apart while he was working and photographing. They started moving. And so I think what happened was he started to realize that art making could actually be a kind of a kinesthetic process where you're involved in the making of the actual image, and then you record the image. In this case, he worked in all photography. But he records a performance. He records an experience. And so early on, when he was shooting that work, he realized about the ephemeral nature of how an image comes into existence. So it's not so much that he's making a representational work of something. He's actually recording the something. So as it's happening live, he's actually capturing the photographs and interjecting pieces of what he thinks might relate to these young women's lives, what they might be experiencing, questioning, struggling about, playing with. He lets them actually get involved in the process quite a bit. He doesn't apply the mud himself, the artist. He asks the women to do it, and the women share in the experience. Like when there's a couple women in a picture, they'll be working on each other and sort of laughing and talking and playing and dancing through this process. And this is all part of what matters to him, is this, he calls it the femme terre, the women's earth, the women experiencing their earth. Now, I don't know, do you want to go left or right, people? You let me know. We can start over here. You want to come back? Let's go up to a piece. Come this way. Come on over. Fade, fade, fade. You'll get a whole preview of the whole show. There you go. And then you're going to cut over into this piece. Check this out. This is a star-studded piece. Really stunning. It's called Standing Tall. It's from 1998-99. She proudly displays her skin mapped with earthy patterns of ancient lands. You can catch a glimpse of it in here, but there's like a map on her body. And this piece, of all the things for me, this is one of the most powerful images because she's like a goddess. This piece is standing tall. It is really tall, actually, visually. You'll see it. It's a lot bigger than that. It's probably 70 by 100 centimeters. I mean, you can see me standing next to it. It's pretty big. But it's $6,120. And you can get in touch with us via Live Art TV by calling 855-983-5483 or going online. Remember, you can always find us at livearttv.com. My name is Thomas Bosket. If you have any questions, ask me, call me, talk to me about what you see here and what intrigues you about it. We're going to kind of take a tour of this picture and see what we can discover along the way. One of the things that strikes me is it almost looks like it's a picture of a picture. We're staring at a picture that's in this frame, right? But there's also this fold here and this fold here, which feel almost like she was printed on a piece of fabric and the fabric was hanging. That's not the case necessarily because this was a performance, actually. The artist was in the room with the model. The model was putting clay on herself, and he gave her fabric to wrap around herself. Here she's sort of collecting it around herself. They also were asked to decorate themselves how they chose, and they covered their faces because, again, this is in Senegal. 90% of the population is Muslim, and it's about a matter of discretion to cover your face. If your body is naked, it's not about the individual, it's about the beauty of the body itself. The mud has to do with just embodying the earth again, coming back to something that's more physical. You can see the physicality in the hair up here, that these prints are quite beautiful. There's a lot of detail in them, and you can see all the nuances of texture in the background. This is the painting that the artist would have done in the background that connects to this strange sort of illusion to like a painting inside a painting or a photograph inside a photograph. This woman, to me, is powerful as heck. I mean, it's interesting that she's looking at us, maybe through this hair coming out and giving us a chance to be with her. She's pretty discreet. I mean, a lot of the parts of the body are covered up, and you get glimpses of skin. I guess that's a bit of a temptation to look. I don't know. What's interesting to me is generally in an image like this, in the history of the art world, and let's back out a little bit, Rich, we would have a moment where you'd have what they classically call the male gaze, where you look at this image and you're able to gaze upon it. What's interesting to me is in those images, generally the woman's head is turned away from us. Now, in this case, to some respect she's turned away, but she's not. She's facing you dead on. So she's here with you, and she's present, and she's aware that you're watching her, and she's decided to be a little bit more enclosed in it, with her hair and sort of veiled, protective, I could say, but she's present in her display. So she's displaying her body. I feel like it's with her consent. She knows that you're there. And so she's watching you, and she still decides to do it, and she does it how she wants to do it. She decorates herself how she wants, and so on and so forth. We'll get you. Thank you. Thank you, good sir. We're getting ourselves all screwed on here. Little by little. There you go. So again, this piece is standing tall, 1998-99. It is a Seba Chrome print, and it is $6,120. You can find it at Live Art TV, and give us a ring if you have any questions or you want to talk about the work. Even if you have something that it reminds you of or an experience you've had that you want to share, we'd love to hear from you. This piece is very like a domineering goddess to me. It's hard to soft pedal what she is. She's standing there as bold as she comes. And when we move into this next piece, it's significantly different. We have this artist. The artist we're looking at today is Ousmane, Ndiaye, Dago. And Dago has a very different image. I mean, these two women are facing away from you. They're obviously in a party festive mode. There's some really subtle stuff you might not notice. Well, the stripe here in the background, you'll notice it goes under her arm, kind of over her arm and onto her back, and then it disappears, and then it reappears over here in the image. So this is kind of interesting that there's this weaving behind and then in front of this stripe, right? Why would the artist put that stripe there? And I know that the stripe is part of the painting in the background. If we back out a little bit, you'll see the whole painting here and get an image of all these textures and things happening. And when I first looked at it, what I saw was like a fort or a cabana that's above them, right? And it crosses over. I didn't even realize it was a painting. I thought it was an architectural structure, like a barn or something. And then I noticed that this stripe went behind them like a fence, and then the fence jumped over them. And I thought, what was going on? It was like they were woven into the space. So the two young women are kind of tied to this space, and I think, why would you tie them to an environment that's so alive and party-like? I mean, they look like they're at the Caribbean, right? They've got this fan of straw, and their hair is all wild and excited. They're painted in clay. Their hands are up. They're really excited about what they're doing. They're partying here, and I think, why would you bind them in this? And it's because, in my mind, it's a place that's really secure. Like, if you're in a cabana and you're wrapped up a little bit, you're protected. You're safe. You're not out in a netherland of nothingness, right? So these two women can have their party, and they can really have it. Like, there's no question that they're protected. Now, what's interesting, though, he protects them, but he doesn't bind them, because I feel like the second woman right here, when you come down, she's left open, right? And she even has her hand open, almost like a vase, right? She's open to the things of the planet, of the earth, I think, like a harvest. This actually looks like a harvest of wheat, but it looks like she's opening herself up to an acceptance. And she's safe to do that. She hasn't joined this wrap yet. She's clearly integrated with this other woman, but she's not bound yet in this environment. She's still free unto herself. The whole environment is very well wrapped up. Now, this artist, again, he spoke about Dago. He spoke about wanting to have this kind of serendipitous, intuitive play be captured by his work. And so what he sets up every time are these performances. He sets up these young women in a room where there's a beautiful image on the screen right now of just how beautiful this hand comes down and the movement of this body with all these painted stripes. And it's a really exquisite movement within an image, which allows us, I think, to enter the image and feel what's going on more easily than if it was just a blunt, body standing there. It's like a very gentle dance. It's not a wild dance. And I'm thinking back to what mattered to him was this chance, this intuition, this kind of breathing of life a bit, where you take on, how do you absorb the things that are around you, right? How does this art represent that breathing and that experience? And I think of being a young person and discovering what life is about, what you care about, and bringing it all together in an artwork. And that's what this piece is doing for me, is a celebration of like a winter's harvest and protecting me within that. I'd like to see what else he's going to do, because the next image we go to is actually going to be significantly different. He's going to be doing something that is similar to what we just saw of women together, wrapped up a little bit, but significantly different. This piece, let me find it for you. This piece is called A Secret Gathering 2, $98.99. It's $7,200. It's 80 by 120 centimeters, which is 31 by 47 inches. Pretty tall. And what strikes me here is the last set of women was significantly different because they were on an environment in the background, right? Here they're on an environment of darkness. So what does this say about them? They are in a place that is of worship. It's not of party. It's a very internal space. So what you imagine here when you see the three of them, even this one's head is leaned forward, and there's a fourth woman actually. This is her arm, and you can see her hand. She's in the background. You can't see her at all. But you know that there's a space that's been created on the inside here. And that's a very private space. That's, for me, I cannot get into this image. I have to stay on the outside and respect what's going on. I'm an observer watching their activities, and partaking only in that I observe. I am not partaking in any form of, even in this case, I'd say the bodies are more discrete and abstract. The light is blaringly bright. And so the image is bleached out in that it's so bright that these three or four women worshiping, we'll discuss why that might exist, I don't know, but the 3 or 4 women worshiping have their own experience, their own strength, their own union. And we are not necessarily part of that. We get to watch it, we get to observe it or respect it, but we don't get to jump in here. You just hang tight. And you'll see, he plays a very different game with some other images. This image is about them and their lives, their experiences, not us. Later, we're going to get into some stuff that actually is a conversation that's more about us looking at them. I don't feel that conversation is happening here at all. Weirdly, also, this image reminds me of, if you look at the whole thing, it reminds me of a huge stone sculpture. There's this great Stonehenge image in my head of just pillars of strength, standing there on the ground and lifting up and rising. And it's a powerful image. They look like a monument. They look like a statue more than they look like 3 young women, worshiping or conjuring up a spell. They seem more to be like a monument. Like this is a long situation. And I think, again, there's 2 weird things here. The fact that this is a long-term situation and that 4th woman is back there. And I don't know how to tie those 2 together yet. I would welcome your conversation. I'm at livearttv.com. My name is Thomas Bosket. And the number here is 855-983-5483. Let's take a look and keep moving along. This piece, again, we're sort of on this theme of girl bands, girl groups getting together and partying, but every single one has a very different story to me, although they're bands of women, significantly different stories. In this one, you have waiting for the dance. I feel like something's about to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And one of them's looking away from us, one of us sort of towards us. They're obviously tied to each other a bit and wound around, so they're involved in this together. And then there's this great graphic swath. Remember that this artist, Dago, spent time in many graphic arts institutes and spends his time, what does it mean to be a graphic artist? A graphic artist is about communication. A graphic artist has to say something that's quite literal. A visual artist doesn't need to. A visual artist can allude to much of what life is about. But a graphic artist has to say something that you can almost read. Okay? So you think, why would he put this huge stripe across them, right? He painted it right over the background, and then right over them, and then onto the background again. And I would say that it's an obliteration, but he didn't obliterate them. Like, that would be my first instinct. But there's something else happening. It feels, again, more like he's tying them up to the place that they're in, kind of gathering them up for this event and tying them to each other. Now, in opposition to that, I would say that there's all this crazy activity of paint falling down here and going up here, and it's like that's an explosion. It looks like they themselves may have been part of creating that because they're all yellow, and they obviously painted their own bodies with this mud, and the mud ended up everywhere. Why that primordial slur of mud ends up everywhere is because it is everywhere. Our lives come out of this stew of craziness and then become more of a structured kind of gathering and togetherness as we spend time, I think, with each other. We spend time with our friends, and we come together for something like a dance and the event that is. So that's kind of a lovely moment. This piece is called Streak. It's from 1988, 1999. It's $7,200, and it's a performance. It feels like a performance. I mean, it's not only a literal performance in that they perform this, it also feels like this is kind of for us. In the earlier pieces, we talked about somebody dancing, somebody spending time together and partying a little bit. Here, they know we're watching. They clearly, one is turned away distinctly with her back to us, and the other one is turned towards us and is almost whispering about us to her friend. She knows we can see her, but she's definitely in this secretive moment. But she's not private, and she's not boldly exploiting her. She's just hanging out. She's waiting. And so it's a quiet kind of moment. We're there together, and they know we're there, but we're not that much of a problem or anything. We're going to see some images that are really aggressive, where the person knows that we're there, and they're saying exactly what they think about it. And we're going to see other pieces where the person is just letting us watch, or maybe we're watching because we want to. And that's a long string of human interaction. I think one of the most striking things about Ousmane, Ndiaye, Dago, and you can help me if you know how to pronounce the Senegalese name better than I do, but Dago is his last name, D-A-G-O. And one of the things I think he does better than most photographers I've ever seen is he talks about a full range of human experience of looking and watching art and life through the lens of photography. And so I think you can follow that trajectory today and see where you sit yourself with that trajectory of being watched, wanting to be watched, being seen, wanting to be seen, by other people, and that craving we have to be noticed or to be needed or to be acknowledged in some way, as well as the range that goes the other way, where you feel like you have been watched too much and you've been observed by your world or seen, and it becomes overwhelming. So you have to find your place in all of that and what you want. So let's move around a little bit and take a look at. Let me see. We might pause and just take a look at this artist, a little bit about Dago's history. Again, remember that he was talking about the Mesa del, and he was in this show in Cartagena, Spain. Hold on just a second. We'll be right back. And are we kicking in? Hello again. We're back, and we're going to just start swinging this way. We have Ousmane, Ndiaye, Dago today, the artist that we're looking at. And we're going to move to a giant piece here of two men seemingly just finished with a wrestling match. And they've come to a bit of agreement. I would say that it's called Both Sides, which brings me into question that both sides does speak to more of a warrior, right? You have one side fighting the other side. Or you have two sides, as in two brothers in a family that struggle with maybe being born into the same family. But what I feel like has happened is they've come to, after a good fight, where they've been wrestling like hay, and there's a lot of mud around, they've come to some sense of agreement. What's interesting, though, and wildly crazy about this image, is if you come up to the top in a second, you'll see that these hands reaching into the image, and there's an external force over here, they don't agree with what's happening on the inside of the image. The inside of the image is an agreement and a kind of balance between the two brothers, but these hands say that this brother is still a victor, a winner. And you can almost see the other brother still has a little fight in him. Like in his face, there's a moment of like he's looking askance at his brother. It's not a friendly look. It's more of a look of like daring still. Like there's still some tension here going on. This is a huge image for me. This is akin to the first one of the goddess. It reminds me of this notion of warrior brothers coming to some resolution in the moment, but it may not be a lifetime's resolution. It's something that they've settled for the moment. So Both Sides was done in 2006. It is a Cibachrome. It has quite a shine to it, which is difficult to film, but I think it's showing out quite well in the video. So you have this piece is $5,800. The artist is Ousmane, Ndiaye, Dago. And Dago's work, he's a Senegalese artist, working with the human body in photography. He was very interested in intuition. But it's interesting to me that he takes the forces of intuition and talks about very iconic, sort of archetypical human experiences like kings and queens and warriors. That he takes things that are visceral, like an argument between two brothers, and decides that maybe we have to find that balance rather than always claiming someone's a king and someone else is a servant of the king. It seems like here there's a little more balance between them. What's interesting is the society is still struggling with that balance. The society is still arguing that there's there's a need for a victor, you know, and I feel like Dago is always trying to balance this situation out, find something of a unity in humans. So there's a celebration of the unity rather than a fight for everything. So this piece is one of compromise, one of respect, one of two equals that have come to understand each other. A beautiful piece. I think we could use more of this in the world, and I think it's a beautiful symbol of that as a work of art. You can see that clearly he's brought a sense of completion to it, you know, something of a home. Okay? Thank you for listening. This is livearttv.com. You can reach us at 855-983-5483. You can also find us at streaming live on Roku, Android, Apple, Amazon Fire Stick, and YouTube. Again, find us at Live Art TV. Reach out, say hi. My name is Thomas Bosket. Feel free to call and say whatever you would have on your mind. I am interested in what you think, what you feel, and just what you're excited about. All right? We're going to move over this way, so take a turn. You ready to go? There we are. Whoop. Let me get out of the way. And we're going to move to this piece, a little guy. It's got a lot going on in it. For a simple piece, this is interesting to me. We talked a little bit earlier about how you look at a piece, okay? And I could take you through this piece formally for a second. Formally just means color, line, shape, texture, value, right? Rhythm, emphasis, unity, all the things that you notice. And then we talk about the content, why you feel those things. So let's look at it formally. Formally, this piece is gray in the background, right? In the front, there's a woman standing here. We can assume it's a woman, right? She's in a flirt skirt and whatnot. Could be a man. We don't know. But it's a woman more than likely. And we're looking through her, right? We're looking from her back to where she's looking. She's looking over somewhere in the distance. And there's this skirt that we have on her, right? And then it comes up to this tube top piece and her arms and whatnot. Mostly the image is pretty dark. There's a light sort of centrally lit here coming down on her. It seems sort of natural-like. It might be a studio light, but it feels kind of natural to me. And then she has this big red swath of fabric paired up here. So these two pieces sort of break your attention between them a little bit, but unify in the center of the painting. You can't help but look at the backside of her buttocks and then looking that way across through her body, and you see all the curves of her body in relationship to that. It's quite a journey around all the shapes between the gray and the gray dark color of her skin, which is a lot warmer than the background. It's kind of a red-brown. But you pretty much kind of find your way wandering around a little bit and then centered here again. How would we talk about balance? Balance, very symmetrical, right? We have two sides to the image, and we almost have a top and a bottom. If I draw my arm across, you'll see that there's a clear bottom and a top, right, that's split, and they're almost like cubes. If you look at them, you feel like you have a block and a block of the body. So you have her upper body and her lower body. Why would somebody do this? It's balanced. Balance is something we appreciate because we speak about it all the time in life, how we want to be balanced. And so this gives us an image of that, where we get to pause for a moment and feel a sense of equanimity, clarity. It's also balanced looking in and out of the image. I feel like I'm looking past her and she's looking at something, but it's kind of calm. There's not a lot of rocky here. There's a little bit of motion, a little bit of wave, but not a lot. Now, this is a case where you have us looking at this image, and because she has been excluded as far as here and here, she's probably here just for us to look at her, which is an interesting question. Some people find this honest, that there are people who like to look at a woman and enjoy the curves and the beauty and the qualities of it. I think it's a pretty discreet image that she's covered up in some ways. The women decide for the most part how they're going to wear the clothes in these images, and so they're not chained that often. They're on them based on how they want to wear them and what they're comfortable with. They are always, in Dago's work, always discreetly posed where their faces are covered or their bodies are protected in some ways, even when unless they want to make a statement that's more about the bold assertion of the body. This is not that. This is this woman looking away from us. You'll see in the next image that we're heading towards that it's going to be a really strong assertion of the image. But wrap up here real fast. This piece is Crimson Cloth 3. $1998.99. It's $5,850. And this woman is a very particular person. By the decorations and the ways that she stands, you know that it's an individual. This individual you are looking at. You're giving a chance to view her. Now, this is a very different situation. This image is called Maps, which is interesting. We'll get into that in a minute. This is called Maps. It's from 1998-99. It's $7,200. And just a quick pause. If you need to find us, we're at livearttv.com. Feel free to give us a call. My name's Thomas Bosket. You can drop me a line and talk to me about this. This piece is clearly a woman being seen. There's no question. You see her. She knows she's being seen. She's looking at you. You can't see her face. Her face is turned out, right? Her hair is covering her face anyhow. But her body is clearly shown to you, and there's no question. She's almost charging at you. There's a feeling that she's coming right off of the screen and charging at you, and she's wrapped herself up in this kind of cloak of whiteness, and the white is all the way around her. It goes around the back of her body and around the front of her body. And so she's cloaked in this thing, and she's wrapped these beads around her. This is a warrior at her strongest. I would say she's fighting. The only thing... I don't know what she could do. She's no question seen and coming at you. And so what do you do with that? Who is this woman, right? What is she doing? She is a warrior. There's no question this is a warrior to me. That she's coming to you with all her fight, all her might, and she wants to talk to you about something. She doesn't feel like she's going to kill you. She feels like she wants to talk to you, and she's got a strong message for you. It's a woman that's proud of herself, proud of her body, proud of who she is. She's not questioning anything at this point. I feel like she's got it all down, and she's ready to share it with you, show you what it's about. So why does this artist do this? He doesn't necessarily. He captures what he sees. So he's not dictating what we see. He's capturing what we see. And here's that mapping again. He calls it the mapping, and this is called Maps. So this may be the mapping of her body. You see different territories. And if you forget about the big story and you just look at the tiny little maps, you get to visit somebody for a moment on the surface of their skin, how they've made themselves, basically. How she made the map of herself in this soil, in this liquid mud. She's built her entire self. Now this is a significantly different image, I think, than anything we've seen. I think the first one was close to it, but number 1. We are now on number 7. I'm sorry I didn't state that, but right up there at the top, you'll see the number 7, that this image, if you want to call in and let us know what you think of it and how you feel, I'd love to hear. I think that there's really strong reactions to this that I could imagine somebody having. I know that my mother might find it challenging, but also once we got into the conversation, she had realized that there were times in her life where she wanted to express that kind of power and assurity and fearlessness. I recently heard her talking about aging and how she felt like she was kind of falling back in a little bit in the world, how she was viewed. But she said she also felt she had the option to counter that and stand back up and speak for herself. And this image, no question, this image speaks for itself. And so they have a lot of strength involved in it. I'd like to move up to the next piece. Let's come over this way a little bit. And this piece... This is an interesting one for me. And I wonder if we pause and have a little bit of a introspection on the artist. We didn't talk much about his history. I talked a little bit about the institutes and whatnot that he was in, but he exhibited at the Biennale of Dakar, the capital of Senegal, and the Biennale of Graphic Arts in Brno, Czech Republic in 1996 and 98. He participated in the Festival des Tres Continentes Ananes, the 3 continents, the Festival of the 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and South America. They also published an entire volume of his photographs entitled Odes Nuis. And this is his exhibition history continued in 2001. He was invited to the Biennale de Valencia, and presented his work at the Galleria Galizia in Milan. He did a live exhibition at the Porsche company in Italy. The live exhibitions tend to involve him painting parts of the backdrops, but also painting some of the models. So in this case, you're seeing right now one of the models over in the distance that he painted. And I don't know, do you want to stay here? But this is a piece. This piece, I think, is somewhat unique amongst his history, because if you look at his exhibition history, I think a lot of the pieces tend to be very dramatic. He tends to do things that are mythological, and archetypical, and really grand. This piece is a little different. This is called Lines, and I consider it much more intimate. It's $8,640. These are like youthful goddesses lined up, and we're going to go through the range of what is happening. Again, we have this stripe that kind of gathers them up a little bit, but also look at their different expressions and qualities of what they're doing. This woman is facing away from us, right? She's got her hand over another woman's face, and she's holding another woman here. If you go to the next one, she's embedded in the image and definitely kind of buried back in here a little bit, protected by this one woman, but tucked away a little more. You come to the next woman, and she's almost shy. This is her, she's protecting herself, wrapping herself, but she has this bold red fabric, which brings up a point. The canvases, all of these pieces that they're wearing are actually pieces of the canvas, and the background is also pieces of the canvas. These are all pieces that the artist has created for these images. And then again, the women paint their own bodies and paint each other. But this woman, I think, who is she? She's kind of the shy girl at school, a little less comfortable maybe in her skin. But it's interesting, he put her in the center of the image. The center of the image would be a place of strength, a place of power. And we're going to finish with the other women, and then we might come back to this. But this next woman, again, is facing away from us, similar to the second woman. But she's more exposed, less protected, far more present to whatever's going to happen. She has paint on her, which is interesting. It came from the backdrop, I believe. There's like an orange running down. It runs down her leg. There's this weird thread that goes through her that starts in her hair in the background and then comes all the way into here. And it's bringing her, to me, more to the foreground. She feels like she's more, much more present, and yet still turned away. Now, for me, the most present woman is the last one. And if you look at her, she's telling you basically to stop for a minute, to wait. She has her hand up and she's holding it out at you like, no, wait. So it's much more of an image of give me space, give me time to think. I'm surprised, although she seems the most present, she's also the most aggressively telling you to wait. So the image isn't necessarily about her being there and showing herself. It's about them being together. And it isn't so much for us. This image is for them. Which brings me back to that central woman again. Because she's the most balanced. She's clearly holding the piece together. She's holding them together. She is protected, protecting herself. She's protected by the other women. She's turned, instead of front or back, she's turned to the side. So she's somewhat present to and aware of us, but also she's tucked back a little bit because she's in the middle of all of them. So she's in this position of power and vulnerability at the same time. And this is what I think is the key to so much of his work. When we talk about the male gaze, this is the idea that women were portrayed throughout her history for men to view, right? That's a difficult position to be put in as a woman. We also talk about men who they like to look at the image, and it's not a matter of power exposing. It's an enjoyment to look at your wife, to appreciate your daughter. These aren't images of exposure; these are images of appreciation. And so you have this moment where this woman, to me, this central woman, represents a moment between the two worlds, which I think is what Dago is trying to talk about. Is that life isn't so easily wrapped up in black and white as we look at somebody, they look at us, or we are looked at, but it can be a balancing act where we might at times want to be seen. There might be times where we need to be protected and more respected, but it's really, really contextual. It's very subtle, and I think it takes time to find where is that line for each person. Where do you feel safe? And that's, I think, when our needs are met, we feel safe. So understanding the needs of a person, and potentially you can do that through these images, you can understand where your needs are met and where you find confusion. So this is livearttv.com. You're visiting us today. My name is Thomas Bosket, and I thank you for spending some time with us. We're going to look at a couple more images, I think, today. So let's head over here. And we've got this crazy piece that I was talking about a little bit earlier, very briefly, but I want to go into it a bit more. I have learned to develop a positive attitude. I have learned to develop a positive attitude. This piece is $7,200. I have learned to develop a positive attitude. So this is an understanding that a young woman may not have had a positive attitude. Might have been, struggled. And then came to a place where it wasn't such a struggle anymore. And she said, I got it. I got it. I know what I'm doing. I'm not putting up with that anymore. I'm doing this. And what's interesting, this piece for me is one of the most heavily clayed pieces. This model is covered in a thick mud. This piece was later in his life, and it's speaking to the weight. I think the weight of what is put upon you. And if you look at this clay in here, there's an incredible amount of like armor. It's definitely like a body armor. And so you think this young woman had to put up with a lot of stuff, but has kind of gotten it together enough that she can stand on her own and say, hey, enough. I got it. You stand back, do a little bit more of what I need, and give me a little bit more of what I need to survive and support. Now, her head is one of the most unusual heads that he's made as of date. This piece is like a sculpture unto itself. Look at this. The hair doesn't even look like it moves or flows. It is a mask. It is something protecting her. So I think that speaks to some of the toughness, some of the struggles she's been through, that she said, hey, that's it. I'm here, and I'm strong, and I'm protected, and you're not getting through so easily unless I want you to. And so there's a lot of armor breaking down to create this powerful woman who says no to what has dominated her and accepted that she can dominate the situation. She is the power here. She is the force to play with and reckon with. And that's what this says, top to bottom. This wrap, this strange headscarf, is declarative. It's red. There's nothing in this image as strong as it. And I think it's got to be something where she was like, I got it. I think this artist, Ousmane, Ndiaye, Dago, definitely uses red to speak to our strength, to our power. You're going to see it crazy in the next image. And this image is also kind of formal. I don't know how to speak about it other than that it is formal. It's called Crimson Cloth 1. It's the first one that he did in 1997-98. It is $5,200. And in this case, remember the last one we had a band up here, and it was more broken into two pieces? This is one central piece. This is like a sculpture. It's like a monolithic sculpture where there's no question that you have this woman. And in this case, for me, there's not such a follow-through to a space where she's looking, but where she is for us to look at. And this is, again, I say some people would struggle with this, but there are people who want to look. And how do we address that? How do we consider that somebody wants to enjoy something and take pleasure in it? And we have to consider the history of what that has meant, I think. But mostly, I think in this case, the artist is very respectfully considering what that means inside the image to the young woman who made the image with him, and how he is celebrating the forms, the textures, the presences of these women in his piece. So he likes to include these bands where they pick which beads they're working with, and it has a bit of the personality of what's going on with each person. You think of what it speaks to, a certain refinement in the red beads, a certain energy and excitement in the peppered beads that go back and forth. But there's no question this swath of red is it's declarative. I don't know, I can't confirm what it's declarative of, but it clearly feels like it's a strong statement that you can't question. You can't consider it an accident. It's the focal point of the image. It's what you're supposed to look at. So be it the buttocks of a person, a woman, and where she's looking, her back a little bit, but it's clearly right in here. And what's interesting to me, you're supposed to look at this, but then at the same time it's veiled and protected and kind of swathed in a cloth that you think of as like a filter, a film, something. There's an interesting point in the history of fashion where we're about to head next, which is called the Flirt Skirt. And this, again, touches on that line. Like anybody who thinks that a man might be looking at this and ogling a woman and is offended, there's lots of men who actually appreciate women and are respectful. And so you think, well, when do they get a chance to be honest and be who they are? And I think that that's what art brings up most poignantly, is not maybe what we want to be in practice, but who we are in the moment and what we're challenged with and questioning. And so we can have conversations around it, and it can bring up things for us. Now, historically, like I said, in the 60s, there was a thing called the flirt skirt. And you're going to head right over here, you're going to see it. And this is this fantastic image of a flirt. You ready? Flirt skirt, bam, is from 1998-99. It's $5,200. And this piece is a Cibachrome piece that's pretty lively. This woman has a purpose, no question. I can't say for her, but I think that she's pretty powerfully saying, yo, this is what it is, and this is what I am, and you get to look at it. And she's wearing a skirt that's pretty playful, and I think that it's maybe comfortable, maybe sexy, maybe fun, but I don't think it could be argued that much that she's having a good time with it, and she might understand that you're having a good time with it. And that's a pretty crazy place to be nowadays. That's a daring place to be. And I think if I didn't know this artist's whole history, I might have more questions about this. But knowing his whole history and knowing about what he cared about, he's trying to show the full range. Andy Warhol was famous for saying, I'm reporting a little bit more than I am commenting. So what Andy Warhol was saying was, I'm just reporting what I see. I'm giving you information about what I see. You can decide what it means, where it goes, what it means, what it entails inside you and has meaning for you. So that's a very big difference than people who control every part of the meaning of their imagery. There's some artists who prefer to say, my imagery is exactly what I intend it to be. Other people say, well, if people want to interpret it or understand it, that's up to them. So back into this piece, very different piece than the last piece. There's a lot of movement. I said the word purpose. I say the word purpose because look at the shaft that goes through this hip, right? It's almost in the center of the image, and the strength in that leg, and then you come up that leg, and you come up into the body. There's a little bit of a curve, but the body is very strong. There's a lot of forcefulness in this image. I want to pound my foot into the ground because there's such strength in the image that there's no question of what you're seeing is a powerful woman. And she's here for you, present as can be. This is a little bit of a yellow flirt skirt, and the yellow is so fiery. It's so alive. It's very incredibly exciting to see this. So don't forget, give us a ring. We are at 855-983-5483. This is Live Art TV at liveart.com, livearttv.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. Drop us a line. Let us know what you're thinking. I think in this case, if I was to tell the story of this, it's a tough story. It reminds me of somebody who's trying to figure out, they know their purpose, but they're trying to figure out how to deliver that purpose how they figure out that purpose in the larger world, right? Where you face a lot of conflicting questions about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be in power, what it means to be seen, what it means to feel strength, to feel surety, and the men who are looking at that, what do they do? Where does respect come in? Where does power come in? Where does and to look at those questions and have a discussion about them is something that art allows us to do. We can look at these pieces and we can use them as windows that open up onto a conversation that we may not have without them, or we may not be able to be challenged by them. Art, as opposed to entertainment, art is something that is supposed to bring into question that which we struggle with. It's also supposed to support that which we struggle with. It can be different places. But entertainment is something that doesn't bring up questions. Entertainment is something that you enjoy, and you pay a little money for, $10 for a film, watch a TV show, but you don't really come into question with yourself. You want to kind of disappear in that theater. You want to melt. And that's not what this work is about. This work is Ousmane, Ndiaye, Dago's work. And he is an artist from Senegal. He was born in 1951, and these are his photographs that you're looking at today. They are challenging works. I hope you find them exciting. I hope you come back and talk to us about them so we can have a conversation at any point after this. I look forward to talking to you. Now, I'd like to look at this last piece here before we do a little bit of a review of the room, maybe. This piece is, again, one of kind of the wrap-up pieces for me of how he thinks about the work. This piece is called Red Earth, 1998-91. It is $6,800. It's a matte print, has almost no shine to it. And this image just screams to me that this is me. This is me. Deal with it. Get through it. You know, she's pulling herself up. She's exposed this red underbelly. There's this harsh white light that's beaming her down. I mean, she is in her element. And I can't imagine what she wants us to witness all of who she is, what she cares about, who she, you know, no question that the strength of her being this fierce warrior on fire, in this case, to me, it's like a flame. You know, the light is so bright that it's blinding. And I think as you go through here, you'll see she's pulling those beads up. Those beads are being pulled up. So it's almost, it looks like she's almost strangling herself, but the beads are way down in her other hand, so she's not. She's just, they're like a violin string, kind of pulled tight to sing the song. And if you come out of the violin string and over to the bow of her arm and stuff, you'll see that there's this wonderful curve through her arm. You kind of come around this, and there's these ropes and hair in the background and stuff. Probably another body. Yeah, there's another woman back here. And you come down through that, all the way through the figure, and you start seeing, come over here to the right a bit and see some of this red. Look at this red patch. This would all be hidden if she had her arm down, right? This is all tucked underneath. So she's exposing, metaphorically, the inside of herself. She's showing us what she's about, and she's saying, I am fire. I am strength. There's no question about the warrior in her. As we come down through her, she's wrapped up. You can bring it, we'll pan out or drop down a little bit, and we'll take a look in a minute. But she's holding, kind of gently actually, holding that string, but pulling down through this elbow. There's a wrap up to her hair. Her hair is just violently, kind of shockingly charging at us over there, coming down. And then there's these hooks, these great wily background painting shadows and hooks in the background. They look like spikes that rise up like rhino's horns that are coming up out of this fierce warrior. I mean, this image just roars. And then you come down and you get into this gentle hand. There's a hand here that's in the background. Almost everything but her is quiet. She is loud, but they look like spikes. They look like a Wolverine sort of claw that's keeping her safe. So I'm starting to realize that the people in the background are actually protecting her the whole time. She's wrapped in a loincloth. It's also protecting her body. In some way, it's sort of tucked around her. Again, I want to stress the women are dressing themselves in these images. They're actually covering themselves in the clay and dressing themselves. The artist may add swashes or sloths of paint here and there, but mostly the women do this to themselves and dress themselves how they see, and the performance is recorded by the artist. So here you have this image of fire, and I think, what does that mean to me, right, as an individual? If I see this, I see a fearsome person, fearsomely addressing the issues that they are confronting or challenged by in their life. And I think about this artist, right, Ousmane Ndiaye, Dago. He is fighting a big society with lots of questions. He comes from a Muslim country, 90% Muslim, Senegal, right? And he is portraying women, mostly, some men, in these positions, these kind of visceral experiences of, I called them archetypes earlier, but like who we are as people. And he's saying, we're so many things. We're powerful. We're scared. We are exposed. We are protected. You know, we're so many things that he's saying to us and showing us. And he's trying to bring balance to all of that. He's trying to say, who are we as people? You know, what do we have to offer each other? How do we come to some place that is harmonious or together? And you see powerful images of a woman who's a warrior. You see women coming together to support each other and be friends, and yet they're aware of us, you know, that we're there as people, maybe watching them, maybe sharing in their experience. But we are part of this process. And I think that that's what art is for me, is a process where we as people can come together and discuss these works, share them, experience them. Go to livearttv.com. Please come visit us and say hi. Our number again is 855-983-5483. I want you to drop me a line. My name is Thomas Bosket. I'd like to talk to you about these works. Don't be shy. Feel free to talk to me about anything, if it's a memory, a feeling, or even an experience you've had that relates to these, or if it's something that just pops into your head and you're not sure why. We can have a conversation about it and see how does it function in relationship to these works. How does it make sense to you, right? Because art is a conversation. Art is a conversation between people and these artifacts. We want to share it with you. Call us at livearttv.com. Visit us at livearttv.com online and say hello. We hope you're well. We look forward to talking to you in the future. My name is Thomas Bosket.